Guys, let me just say that Bygones has single-handedly revived the adaptive frame archetype. And you gotta understand, inside of PvP, when we talk pulse rifles, at the very top, you've got LC. It's a high-impact pulse. It get 2-round bursts. You can get rolls like Zim Moment and Headseeker. It's disgusting. Even after Bungie pulled back high-impact pulse rifles by lowering their crit damage from 40.1 to 39.6, I would say LC's rifle is still very much the best PvP pulse rifle in the game. However, adaptive pulse rifles just came back swinging. Not only did they get a buff in its base damage from 20 to 22, with a small pullback in its critical hit damage from 36.5 to 36.3, the biggest thing is the weapon that they've brought back. Bygones is dropping from Gambit. And when I think of iconic weapons that represent a playlist, when I think of the competitive playlist from back in the day, I think of OG Luna's How. And when I think of Gambit, especially Gambit when it first came out, well, hell, fellas, the first weapon that jumps to my mind is Bygones. Now, I know some of you are saying, Cross, there's no way in hell you're going to get me to play Gambit, especially considering just how many roles are present on this weapon. Do you see these traits, fellas? Bungie's literally like, hey, here's every option in the game ever. Good luck! However, do keep in mind that you can focus for this weapon at Drifter. You can acquire those Gambit Ingrams, you can then focus them, and then to take that even further, if you play Gambit all the way through and you reset your rank, now your Bygone drops should get double traits, or at least have a chance of getting double traits. Now, I'm gonna be honest, guys, I burnt out. That's why all my Bygone rolls right here all have single traits in their columns. I try to go for max rank, but going for a Gambit reset is not an easy task, and definitely not something I would recommend doing over a single day. As a matter of fact, wait until we have double infamy week so that you're getting bonus reputation and then attack Gambits, because that definitely makes the grind a lot better. With that being said though, there are some roles present on Bygones that gives it a fighting chance, and in some cases, even exceeds the likes of LC's rifle. And this is coming from somebody that has the God roll LCs, that loves LCs, but Bygone presents something here that every father in Destiny 2 will love, and that's the ability to be the ultimate laning Larry, and that being the trait High Ground. Now, normally I would jump up and say Headseeker is the way to go, and I'm not saying Headseeker is not good. Matter of fact, when we started looking at all the traits here and all the different combinations, you have some fantastic ones. Everything from Zim Moment and Headseeker. Lone Wolf is also present there. Keep Away is good in that third column. Again, we're talking about PvP right now. To the Pain is a good one. In that fourth column though, Desperado, Kill Clip, those are all very solid options. But High Ground on this particular pulse rifle allows it to get the 2 bursts simply by just being higher than your enemy. And by higher, I mean elevation, fellas. Elevation. This is literally Obi-Wan's perk right here. If your feet are slightly higher than your enemy's feet, this perk will proc, thus immediately granting you 3 stacks. That being a whopping 15% increase in damage. Just enough for this archetype to get the 2 bursts. You're seeing it in action, guys. What this allows Bygones to achieve is a time to kill of 0.6 seconds. Fellas, that's even faster than LC's rifle. And there's no real main hoops to jump through this outside of being slightly higher than your enemy. And the more you use this perk, guys, you start to look at the map differently. You'll see that little ledge right there. You'll go, okay, let me get on top of that. You'll throw a glacier grenade on the side of a wall to stand on it, to proc High Ground. This is a very low level loop to jump through to get wonderful benefits that will win you 1v1s. It will make you the ultimate laning Larry, because you will hold that area down like a sentry with High Ground being procced at full stacks. Now, a few things about High Ground. Number one, Bungie did a rework to it. Essentially, you could still get a damage buff even if you are not higher than your enemy, almost like Rampage in a way, by simply getting a kill. This would then give you those stacks. So if you haven't used this perk in a long time, understand there is more forgiveness for High Ground. Obviously, being higher than your enemy is the better way, as you're able to achieve those maximum stacks of High Ground immediately and requires no kill activation. However, the second thing about High Ground is that this perk cannot be activated by jumping in the air. You can't just jump up, proc the perk. You physically have to be on a ledge or something, whether it's a glacier grenade or even little spots on the map that you could stand on that aren't even visible, whatever. Just something that allows you to physically stand on something that puts you higher than your enemy. I've been told that it has to be somewhere around a meter high, but I haven't actually sat down and measured. But the point of this is, guys, once you get used to using High Ground, you will come to realize just how good this trait is, especially for Bygones. Now the question is, what should you use with High Ground? I was using Zim Moment because that's what I got on my roll. Zim Moment is really, really nice. Not that this archetype needs it, because adaptives, in my opinion, already feel really, really manageable. One thing you're going to run into with this archetype, though, is damage fall off, which is where perks like Keep Away can help. And I actually have a roll just like this for LC, and it's actually 2 different rolls. I have a Zim Moment Headseeker roll and a Keep Away Headseeker roll. And I will swap between both of those depending on the map. If it's a further range map and I need that extra meter of range, then we'll use Keep Away. If it's a closer range map where I'm going to be in more duels, then Zen Moment all day long. And keep in mind, guys, all of these perks can be enhanced, so that enhanced version of Keep Away is even better. Enhanced Zen Moment tacks on passively 5 stability. Enhanced High Ground doesn't really do a whole lot, guys. Just gives you +5 reload speed. But the point is, either one of these versions of Bygones is going to be fantastic. The only other trait that I may consider over Zen or Keep Away would be Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf is a perk that I've been using more and more here lately. It's a new trait which improves aim assist, aim down sight speed, and airborne effectiveness. And fellas, it gives you some amazing stat bonuses, with the enhanced version increasing that even further. But get this, the stats double when no allies are within 15 meters. If there was ever a perk that would break up snowballing inside of Destiny 2's PvP, this is the perk. This is the perk that says, hey, go for that flank. With that being said though, Zen Moment, Keep Away have always been two fantastic traits, and those combined with High Ground are very, very good. Now, if you didn't want to rock High Ground again, you can always do Headseeker, with the enhanced version granting you that +5 stability. Keep in mind, Headseeker not only increases our crit damage after landing body shots, but it also increases our aim assist, just slightly. What Headseeker does is that it shifts the resilience tiers up just a bit compared to the base, where 5 crits 2 body was only achievable at tier 6 resilience and below. Headseeker, you can get the kill in 5 crits 2 body, 0.93 seconds at tier 9 resilience and below. A little more forgiveness, but again, I gotta ask, would you use this over High Ground? My experience, I wouldn't use any of these traits in this final column except for High Ground, because at that point, if I started looking at Headseeker or Kill Clip or even Desperado, yes, we can get it kill activated and get to farming, but in terms of 1v1 scenarios, LC is gonna beat this Pulse Rifle. It's only when we start talking about High Ground and that 0.6 second time to kill value that now we're in a situation where we can compete and even outcompete LC if we can land the perfect 2 bursts. Now this takes us to our barrel perk in our magazine column. What should we use? I really feel like ricochet rounds is probably the way to go, guys. Tacks on that stability, gives you that +5 range. In terms of recoil direction, guys, I think just having a counterbalance mod is just fine for Bygones. I've seen some people overcompensate. They've done things like Arrowhead Break, essentially going for the max recoil direction of 100. I don't believe that's necessary. Matter of fact, Hammerforged Rifle and ricochet rounds, a counterbalance mod, and a range masterwork with Keep Away or Zen Moments, I feel good about that. Like, to me, that's the role that I would want, and I can manage everything else. With that being said, if you're a controller player and you're like, no, I only want to use a Pulse Rifle with max recoil direction, even with it having deterministic recoil, then go right ahead, man. Do your thing. But that's what I would look for, guys. Hammerforged, ricochet rounds, range masterwork, a counterbalance mod, Zen Moment, Keep Away with High Ground. Now, does our origin traits on Bygones assist us here? Again, this is the Gambit origin trait, Gun and Run. Rapidly defeating targets with this weapon grants bonus sprint speed. Guardians, powerful combatants, and higher value targets grants this bonus quicker. Essentially, guys, when you get a weapon kill for 10 seconds, you move 6.25% faster. For players inside of PvP, it's an immediate proc. Inside of PvE, you'll have to build up to it if you're just killing minor enemies. It's definitely not the craziest origin traits. I feel like it's definitely meant for something like Gambit, where you get kills and you're moving across the battlefield, you move faster. It's all right, but definitely not something that I would say, hey, you just procced Gun and Run after a kill. Now, completely vacate your high point and your lane where you were proccing High Ground and make your way to the enemy spawn, which you're now 6.25% or whatever more sprint speed. No, you've got High Ground, you're rocking a Pulse Rifle, you're laning Larry, man. Sit tight, keep that perk procced, and let people walk into your reticle. Now, for my PvE players, I know most of you are keying in on kinetic trimmers, and we've got some pretty good options, from kinetic trimmers to shoot the loot. You can do trimmers with attrition orbs. Demolitionist is also here in that 3rd trait column, and you can definitely use the other damage perks inside of PvE, whether it's Desperate Measures, Vorpal, Firefly, I guess, if you want. High Ground actually got a buff inside of PvE, where at max stacks it does 25% more damage. However, I find High Ground inside of PvE to be even more situational, considering most of the activities we're doing has us moving all the time, therefore changing up multiple levels. Not saying it's not a good perk. I'm personally just leaning toward kinetic trimmers more. Now keep in mind, the enhanced version of kinetic trimmers will actually proc in 10 shots versus the 11 at base, which is pretty fast for this archetype. Now keep in mind though, there is a 2-second cooldown from the last shockwave, which is why magazine perks are really important for things like kinetic trimmers, things like a pendant mag, maybe even a backup mag mod. That way you can get multiple activations of kinetic trimmers to proc for you. Am I crazy about this weapon inside of PvE? Not as much as I'm crazy about it inside of PvP. And that's because inside of PvE, we already have really good pulse rifles. Most notably, our 2-round burst pulses. Those things are phenomenal. Their DPS is very good. And I'm not saying that you can't use Bygones inside of PvE. It definitely possesses some roles that I'm going to be interested in. But for my PvE players, I wouldn't kill yourself getting this one. Again, when I think of good pulse rifles for PvE, I think of Nullify, Corrasion. I Tenacious Care, Revision 0 even, how even Graviton Lance, or the most recent rework there to Bad Juju. Where we start to veer off to adaptive pulse rifles is when we start looking at weapons that synergize with our subclass, most notably weapons like Vantage Points, which can come with perks like Jolting Feedback. Now, similar to Kinetic Tremors, except with this weapon, you're getting that jolt damage to activate, which has a host of different synergies, whereas Kinetic Tremors here on Bygones is just raw damage. Still very good, still something I appreciate on Bygones, and definitely the role I would go for if I wanted a role for PvE, but this is definitely a weapon more so for my PvP players. So guys, that is our review for Bygones. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Good luck on getting this weapon. It's got a lot of different traits. I know Bungie's in the middle of like addressing the whole weight gate situation, so hopefully that gets addressed here pretty soon. However, funny enough, if weight gate is a real thing, Zip Moment High Ground, those traits are relatively close, so the probability of it dropping should be slightly higher. Granted, that is of course if our theory is correct. I definitely wouldn't necessarily change the way you loot for things, but if you're someone that enjoys Gambit or even tolerates it, and you can make your way to getting that reset in Gambit, that's a great way to secure multiple traits and therefore more opportunities to get that god roll. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.